Alrighty. So what I really want to do today is I want to look at how we would go about using these principles of adjusting and assisting with people with our own partners. And then before we, I guess I'll come back to that. Sorry, 1 second. Okay. So first of all, we're just going to start with like really basic stuff. So Alexis, come on over here. And so if I was going to work on Alexis, let's say Alexis is a fully grown human, which she's only about half fully grown, so she's not quite fully grown. So let's say she's fully grown and I'm going to assist her in Tadasana. I'll have you stand at the top of your mat. Okay. And then bring your big toes together to touch. Let your heels be slightly, oh, that's too much, sweetheart. A little bit more. Yeah. Maybe just a little. So now what I'm noticing, so I'm noticing this. I don't know if you guys can see this, but I'm actually going to bring you guys over here to notice. So you look at her feet. So look at her feet, guys. What's happening? What's happening right here? Can anybody see it?
She's rolling in.
Flat-footed.
Yeah, she's flat-footed. She's rolling in. Well, she's like her dad, right? So this is how it works. So she has no arches. Her arches are fallen right there. So this is not really helping her. So I'm going to go ahead and have her bring her feet hips distance apart underneath, just like that, straight forward. And then because she's little and I can sort of help her to develop some more strength in her foot, I'm going to cue her to press into this outer edge of your foot. Can you press? Do you feel your inner arch come up a little bit? Yeah? Well, that's what you're going to work on so that you don't like continue to fall. Your arches. Yes, that's it. Can you guys see that? The difference? So if you let it go, Alexis, let it go. Look how much she falls. Now press into the outer edge. Oh, she can do that. Chris cannot do that. My husband cannot do that. So he has lost the ability to activate his arches at all, right? So then the next thing I'm going to do, place you guys back on the table, is I'm going to stand behind her and I'm going to tell her to press into all four corners of your feet, really work on the outside edges of your feet. Now lift your kneecaps up, engage your quads, yeah? No, that's bending your knees, lift up, yeah? There you go. And now bring your low belly in, yep, nope, you had it right. And then broaden your shoulders. Yep, shoulders down your back. So I'm in a Tadasana, she's in a Tadasana, I'm behind her, this is fun, okay? So the next posture we're going to look at is downward facing dog. So I'm going to show you 2 different ways to assist downward dog, so go ahead and take downward dog. Now your work is always going to be, Alexis, moving into the outer edge of your foot because you are flat-footed. So see, even here, your feet are wanting to roll in. Can you activate through the sides, press into the pinky ball mounts, yeah? Okay, so now, remember I told you about kids, they're not done growing yet. So pretend she was a full-fledged adult, her hips would be higher, right? And she would be able to get a little bit more extension in the back right now. She's still growing, so she's not going to have that. Now, we were talking earlier about force, and this is one of the things that I'm talking about. So in this downward dog, come back in. If somebody was in a downward dog and it looked good already, I could apply force to this pelvic region, so it would look something like this. But I can't do that to her because she's not in a downward dog that looks like it can take that, okay? So that assist or that adjustment is more of a feel-good adjustment. For Alexis, I'm gonna do a different thing because she doesn't have the flexion in the hips yet to do it. So I'm gonna sit like this and I'm gonna say roll forward into a plank. Yes, no, sit with your knees straight, hips higher, a little higher, there you go. Okay, now I'm going to take my arms here. Let's stay right here. I'm going to take my arms here. Put your hips up and back. Yes. And did you see a little difference? Yes, no, maybe? So what I'm doing is I'm wrapping these arms away from the midline And in time, you know, you can come down to your knees. In time, she will be able to have more extension in her upper back. Okay? So the next one that we're going to do is we're going to do a hip stance. So when she was in downward dogs, I would be using that horse stance, right? I would be like this, or I would be using a lunge, where my front leg is forward. Think of warrior one rather, and then I'm pushing this way. Okay? Now, if she comes in, come up to standing, and lunge your right foot forward, and keep your back foot back. Yeah. Move your left foot over to the left, towards me. Just a little bit, yeah, perfect. Now bend into your right knee and raise your arms. Okay? This is pretty good, warrior one. This is really good job, Alexis. Now, what I'm looking for right now is her knee. Where's her knee? And her knee, if you can see, where is it? It's coming in towards the midline. Can you guys see that? Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, bring your knee to my hand. And this is hopefully, I'm going to get her to keep her knee stacked over her ankle. But notice I didn't touch her knee. I didn't pull her knee. Yes?
Let me call you back. You said you about to play your game?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, now in the back leg, this is like a really big stretch. Now, Alexis, watch your front knee over your ankle. Keep really working that. That's the work, okay? All right, now press into your back foot, right? Now, sometimes people will adjust the pelvis in warrior one, and that's okay. I'm gonna put my hands on either side of her pelvis. Now, first I'm gonna say, do you mind if I give you an adjustment? She says no, so I'm gonna trust her. So I put my hands on her hips, bend your knee over your ankle. Yes, like that. And so I'm just taking her hips gently and I'm just showing them where to go, right? But I'm not forcing it, right? That's the one thing. You can come out of that? I'm not forcing it to be a certain way. So let's do that same lunge, Alexis. Same warrior one. Okay, so from here, let's say I've got her in warrior one. You're here. Now I'm going to open you up to warrior two. Just like that, and open your arms down. Yes. Now, pull your shoulders back. Nope, not your knee. Keep your knee bending. Knee bending, bending. Yes, there you go. So when notice when her knee is not really bent, that's when it wants to come over. It wants to track inward, right? So really be aware. Yes, yes. You feel that? So track your knee over your ankle. That's really important to save your knee, okay? Fingers together. Straight arms. Yep, beautiful warrior one. Now, or warrior two rather. Now look here at the back knee. What's going on with the back knee? I told you guys about this, right? The back knee is not, so is this comfortable, Alexis? No? So would you turn your toes a little bit less in? Yeah, just like that. Now try to take it. Is that better? Yeah, that's better. So again, stack your knee over your ankle. There you go. And really press into this outer edge. So again, the work for Alexis, because she's flat-footed, is going to be to press into the outer edge. Like I can even see here that her foot is actually pronating in towards the center. So turn your toes more forward. Yes. Now then press into the outer edge. Yes. You feel that? Yeah. So that's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, right? Come out of it. Okay. Questions about these two, warrior one and warrior two? In terms of what to look for in postural alignment. Okay, so Alexis, stand up and we're gonna do warrior three. So you're gonna stand forward, okay? And then shift your weight into one foot. Now remember, you have to really push your weight into the outer edge, okay? And then you're gonna bring your hands to the heart and you're gonna tick-tock like this. Okay, I'm gonna be here to support you. So I'm gonna support her from here on the inside of the lifted leg. Can I assist you? Yes. Okay, lift your leg, heart forward. So it's okay. So again, we talked about these weak glutes. You got it, you got it. So drop this hip down. Let me show you, okay? So again, right? So this all the way up. This lift through the heel, okay? So let's try it on the other side. So I'll show you on the other side. Left foot. Now watch your foot. See what's happening? Yeah. Press into the outer edge, yeah. My hands are on our hips. Lift your heel, lift your heel, lift your heel. Part forward, part forward, part forward. I got you. Yeah. Okay, come on out. So typically, Alexis, you're gonna do it to me, and I'm gonna show you. So you put your hands on my hips, stand inside my legs. So if this leg is lifting, you're standing right here. Put your hands here, okay? Now, hold on. Woo. Okay, now here. So now see how her body is being like sort of, no, you were perfect. You were right where you need to be. So her body is helping me to stay in this position because it's giving me something to be like lean into. Does that make sense? Her hip and my inner knee can sort of track together so that I feel more stable. Okay. Now, obviously, Alexis has never done Warrior 3 in her life, so this is totally new. You did a great job. Really appreciate it. Okay, let's take Warrior 2 again and I'm going to show you the knee hip assist. So Warrior 2. So nice wide stance. A little bit wider. Yep, perfect. Bend your knee. No, open your arms. So I can come down on one knee, and then my hip is on her hip. Okay? And now her knee can lean into my knee. Yeah? And now I'm here. No, stay in. Okay. And straighten your arms. Good job. Nice job. So I use my hip to try to get her to be stable. Okay. And that's just one way. Yeah, there's some partner work in there. Yeah, beautiful. Really nice. So any questions about this?
Yeah, I have a question. Especially for people with flat feet like myself, I know when you get into these poses, it can be like kind of painful, and it's tough, especially when you're older. So do you encourage people to continue to stay in the poses for as long as they can, or yeah?
Yeah. My husband, like, I'm telling you, it's so funny because last week I used him to demo a few of these things because we were talking about injury prevention and flat-footedness. He hates it when I take him in and out of those standing balancing postures, and he will come out of them early. Like the whole rest of the class is still in him, and he's like, you can see the look on his face. He's like, why? You know, and maybe I need to be more sensitive to him when he comes to class, but it's very challenging for people. And I could see with Alexis, she's still young enough, she might be able to build some of that arch support back in. But once you're like, you know, in your 30s, you know, late 20s, 30s, 40s, it's going to be much more challenging to rebuild those arches. And so how do we counter that? Arch supports, you know, Chris said he's never tried yoga with arch supports, but that would be interesting to have, you know, just to try yoga with arch supports and see if it feels any different. But yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Can I ask a question, please? Hi, I'm just wondering, when you're doing Warrior 1 and 2, is the knee supposed to be behind the tip of the foot, or are you making sure that it doesn't go beyond the tip of the toes, the knee?
So you want it stacked directly over the ankle. If it's past
right.
the ankle, it's probably moving too far.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much. I'm Ali, by the way. I'm not got my picture up, but thank you.
You're so welcome. Any other questions? Okay. All right. So back at it, Alexis. Okay. So, all right. So the next one I want to show is Alexis. So I'm going to show you a pose. It's called half pigeon. Okay. So you're going to come from, I like to teach a downward dog. So come to downward dog, right knee forward, left leg back. Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, perfect. Okay, so Alexis is in half pigeon now, and Alexis is super tight and never been in half pigeon before, so this is always fun, right? So what I'm going to do is walk this left leg back, honey. So imagine you could fold forward over your leg. Can you? Up to your forearms, yeah, just like that. So I'm gonna put a block here to stabilize your pelvis. Does that feel better? Yes, okay. Now, here she is. Now let's say she wants to come up and do like a full like back bend or an active version. She's gonna press her way up, but keep the block, right? Press your way up, keep the block. Bend your back knee. No, bend it, like bring it up. So if I was gonna assist her with this, now we're not gonna actually do anything, but I'm just showing you this. So pelvis forward. So I would have my knees around her knee to stabilize that. Then if she was like, had this in her practice, which she doesn't, right? She would reach up and go back, and I would have this stable for her. Does that make sense? So it doesn't move, and her hips are stable because there's a block under her hips. So look, this sacrum is nice and safe, okay? All right. Questions?
Can you show that on the other side and tilt the camera down just a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Do you want to do the other side one? Okay. So this knee forward. Yep, that's right. Now, yep, just like that. Yep, perfect. Walk this leg back. See, you're natural. You know what to do. So hip and under, or hip, block under hip, right? Okay, now you're here. Now imagine you want to bring this knee up. Okay, so this is for like a mermaid pose or something like this. So I'm supporting her in this. Okay, pelvis is square. Block is under, you know, if she's high like this, I can even put it even higher, right? Keep this pelvis square. Keep it neutral. And then she could reach up and grab the foot, but look, I've got her knee is in between my knees.
Thank you.
Awesome. Questions?
Should the back foot be flexed or pointed?
Well, ultimately, it'll end up being pointed when you grab it.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, any other questions? Cool. All righty. So now let's come into low lunge. So,
I'm sorry, I have one more question about half pigeon.
yes.
The bent knee, the front knee, it should be aligned with the hip?
The front knee, no. No, it's gonna be slightly off to the outside of the hip.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, in fact, that's one reason that a lot of times people will, hold up. That's one reason a lot of times people will not be able to get as deep into it because they're trying to keep their knee in line with their hip, or they're trying to parallel their shin to the top of the mat. Neither one of those things needs to be done.
Would you mind showing us in a like front view position?
Sure. Here, Alexis, well, I can just show you here, I guess, right? So this is fine. So here's my hip, here's my knee. Hip, knee. So you can see here's the line of my hip that my knee is going off to the side, right? Now, if I was going to bring my shin parallel to the top of the mat, this is really challenging for a lot of people. And to keep their pelvis square, it's really, really hard and not required. Because like I said last week, when my knee is like this, even though the joint is like closed, it's not the same as when it's completely closed like this. And this is going to make sure nothing's moving in here. So I've heard it's like yoga myth, right? That to protect the knee, you have to have the shin parallel to the top of the mat. That's not true. To protect the knee needs to be closed. Now, if you can do this and you're flexible enough for your pelvis to be square to the top of the mat and your toes to be flexing back, and this is comfortable for you, awesome, you can do it like this, but you can also do it like this, and that's fine, the knee's still protected. But always it's gonna be out to the side slightly.
Okay, and one more question. Should you be able to sit up in that position unassisted by your arms? Because I can't.
That's going to be like your hips and your pelvic girdle strength. I don't know, should, I caution against ever saying should, right? Because what should happen for me might not should be for you, you know what I'm saying? So it's just, if you can't do it, it's a pelvic girdle strength issue.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions? Somebody asked me, what do I mean about the knee being closed? Well, if the knee is a hinge joint and this is open, this is closed to a degree, right? But I can still torque the knee in this degree, right? But if I take the knee into its full range of motion, this is closed. It's not going anywhere. Does that make sense? Other questions? Okay. So let's go into low lunge. No, let's go into Malasana, okay? Malasana is yogi squat. So come to the top of your mat. Feet as wide as the mat. Toes to the east and the west. Bend your knees, sit your hips low, hands at heart center. Now, flat-footed people also do not love this pose either. So I'm gonna put a block under your hips, you can sit on that block. Okay, so that's bus stop number one, there's a block under the hips. Now she can put her feet down, and again, it's the same work is gonna be to push into the outer edges of the feet. Now I'm gonna come in with my knees are behind her, and I'm going to bring my hands, my two fingers to her shoulders. Broaden your shoulders, bring your shoulders down your back. Yeah? So now I'm supporting her with my knees, and I'm not grabbing her. I don't want to grab her shoulders and move her shoulders. Remember, that's distal adjustments. We don't want to do that. I'm just cueing her to bring energetic engagement to that area. Alexis, will you come onto your belly? Okay, so we're going to look at Cobra pose. So Bhujangasana is another issue or another instance where we can use our fingers and our hands and our body placement to help adjust. So bring your hands next to your ribs. Yes, and your elbows in just like that, in just like that. Now press into the tops of your feet. No toes on the ground. Yeah, there you go. Press into the tops of the feet like you're a long snake, okay? Now bring your heart up into my hand. Yeah. Now you've seen, I'm sure we've all seen this, people take their hands and pull the shoulders back. Instead of doing that, now come up, bring your hands to their shoulders and pull the skin down. So you're not grabbing, you're energetically pulling. It's a suggestion rather than a demand. Yeah? Thank you. Okay? All right, questions? She's our comic relief today.
This isn't, for me, I've been steering away from, like, I guess, motions adjustments that could come off as like patting or wiping my hand across the body, just kind of to be mindful of that sensation. So for this pose, I do put my hands on the shoulders, like you said, but instead of like pulling back, it's mostly like fingertips to the shoulder heads to kind of guide the shoulder heads back rather than like rubbing my hand down their back.
Sure. And so I can see where Max is coming from too. So what Max is saying, hey Alexis, come back into Cobra for me. So Max, tell me if this is what you're saying. So Alexis is going to come into Cobra. And so you're taking your fingers and you're just touching the heads of the shoulders, right? Is that what you're saying, Max?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, this is fine. Come down, Alexis. So I've seen some weird stuff, guys. I've seen some weird stuff in studios and on the internet and stuff like that. Those types of things are fine. It's when we get into real force that is a no-no. So I'm going to show you something that's a no-no. This is not something you will do, but she's my daughter, so I feel like I can show you this, right? And I'm not going to use any force. I'm just going to show you what I've seen. And you guys tell me if you've seen anything like this before. She gave me full consent. Okay. So come up, straighten your arms, all the way straight, like you were going to do this morning. Yep, lift your thighs off the mat. Thighs off the mat. Knees off the mat. There you go. All that off the mat. So I've seen people put their feet on people's shoulders and push. Okay, that's a no bueno. I don't particularly. I've seen people do it though, and I don't love it. I think it has the propensity to be dangerous. So I just wanted to touch on that. But I think what Max is saying is fine. Another thing I've seen, here, come back down. In locust, this is distal touch. So again, we're talking about distal adjustments. Interlace your fingers here at your, so like this. Alexis, like this. Like, yeah, just like that. Okay, now press into the tops of your feet like cobra. Nope, tops of your feet, press in. Lift your heart, come up. If I was to pull her arms and pull her arms back, no bueno. No bueno, okay? Because that has the propensity again to hurt her or to dislocate her shoulders. Questions? Was that helpful? Sort of in what not to do scenario?
Hey, Michelle, really quick, I couldn't see, but when you were adjusting in Cobra, were you standing over or to the side of the student?
Okay, so that's a good one. So come back in. I stand to the side. I used to stand over them, but after Me Too, I don't do that anymore. So come down, lay straight down. So I would stand to the side of her. Can you see this? And then I would squat down, and then I would come up. So I'm pulling that way, or like Max said, maybe just finger touch, right? Just telling her, bring her shoulders back, yeah? Another way you could do it is, come on, do that one more time, Alexis. And then I want, let's say her elbows are splaying out, like winging. I'm gonna say, bring your elbows in. So 2 fingers, bring your elbows in. But I'm crouched next to her. I'm not gonna stand over her. Like I said, we used to do that in the studio all the time. Now I feel uncomfortable doing that because I don't know what somebody's been through. I don't know what trauma they've been through. I don't know what orientation they are. You know, all of these things that I don't know. And I don't want them to get the wrong idea because I'm standing over them that way.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah. Any
Can I
other?
just ask a quick question about the correct alignment for your arms in Cobra? I'm confused about whether you extend them more fully as in upward facing dog, or are they like what Alexis was just doing, more bent? Or is it a variation of whatever is in your practice?
So this is actually an interesting conversation because, you know, Light on Yoga, I think Iyengar's intention was that there were progressions, right? And if you read Light on Yoga, there's like a year-long, or maybe it's a 3-year-long, like daily course that he gives you on like how to progress to these postures. But I have always taught it that Cobra is bent elbows, and that you only lift up as much as your own back can lift you. So you don't use your hands. You should be able to float your hands in Cobra. But that upward facing dog, you press into the arms become straight, the thighs lift off the mat. That is what is protecting the glutes and the sacrum and all those things. That if the thighs stay on the mat, that can cause problems in the lumbar back and the SI joint. That's the way I teach it. So like, I don't teach baby Cobra because to me, Cobra and baby Cobra are the same thing. Because I mean, I guess, again, Iyengar is in our training because I had to have something to go back to. I'm not an Iyengar trained yogi, right? And so if I look at the basics, like if I look at Cobra basic versus up dog basic, Cobra basic, elbows are in and barely any weight is in the hands. But up dog, it's like fully straight, thighs are lifted off the mat. Now I know he has an extreme version of Cobra. I think it's like the 3rd version of Cobra that's really extreme. I don't teach that, and I don't want students practicing it personally, but I can't really help. I mean, can't really influence that. They can do what they want, but honestly, I avoid that.
Hey, Michelle, I have a question. This is Rogelio from New Jersey.
Okay.
So, I'm going to say, are some of these adjustment issues that we're seeing related to poor form. For example, if you look down to chaturanga, right? Chaturanga, what chaturanga teaches you is, right, is your arms right at where your natural nipple is, right? Elbows pulled in, right? And it all develops from that, right? So your downward, your like that position that you're teaching, it all stems from developing good posture from chaturanga, right?
Well, or you could even
And
say from Tadasana, right?
well, yeah, but it's everything distills back to Tadasana, right? As to get what's grounded, right? What is getting grounded when you're in Tadasana, right? Your feet, your lower parts of your body engage, your pelvis, you know, your sacrum, all the way to the crown of the head pointing correct, all the way up, right? The same thing is with when you do chaturanga, right? So what I'm saying is that if all of these things are they part of the student not developing proper form as they progress through their practice? That's my question.
So yeah, so here I think that's a good question. I think there are a couple things that come up for me around that. I think that yes, proper form is part of the problem. I think strength is part of the problem. Like honestly, a lot of yoga teachers that I know personally in Austin, for example, don't understand that chaturanga is a float back. Plank is not involved in chaturanga. And so if you can't float back like silently, lightly with the bandhas, like you're not doing chaturanga, you're doing a variation of chaturanga. So, so what I guess what I'm saying to you is that it starts with the teacher's understanding and awareness. If the teacher doesn't know, they can't really teach the students, right? Then it goes back to the limitations of a studio class. You know, yoga's not supposed to be a group fitness class. Like that's not what we're doing. And I know, you know, people love to comment on my ads and they love to like get all, you know, irritated or whatever about, you know, online yoga teacher training and like, oh, too many yoga teachers, blah, 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 blah. But I actually think everybody should be trained this way. I think every single person who walks into a yoga studio should have some level of quote unquote what we learn in teacher training, because you know it's so difficult to have a practice where you're fully aligned and engaged in your body without one-on-one connection with the teacher. And that's what Ashtanga teaches us. Ashtanga teaches us that you work with a teacher, but notice none of the other sort of you know, Iyengar was all about getting yoga to the masses. So he would do these, you know, he would teach for thousands of people in these auditoriums, you know, but how can you adjust each and every person, you know, with that, in that situation? Ashtanga really takes us back to, you need somebody there to watch your body to help you to develop the memory neurons to get back there over and over and over again, and to break any postural samskaras that are in your body. And so I think that ultimately what it comes down to is that we need to, students need to check in with a teacher, like at least every once in a while, even if it's after class. If they can't afford a private, like that's okay. Like I get it, it's expensive. Yoga can be very expensive, but you know, students, encourage students to check in with you after class, to ask questions about their alignment, to have you take a look at them in different asanas. If we start to have this dialogue, then we can tell them, you know, how to refine, how to, you know, strengthen, how to balance, how to create more structure in their asanas, and then that will translate into everything. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Any other questions? So I know in the chat, there was a little talk about, yes. So I'm very, there's only a couple of things that I'm really a stickler about, and lifting the thighs in upward facing dog is one of them. I mean, you just feel the difference. You feel how if your thighs are on the ground and your arms are straight, you can feel the energy dump into your low back. You can feel it as a felt sensation. But if your thighs are up, you feel the energy moving through the entire spine in like a cohesive way and out into the legs, like as an extension of the spine. So that's what we're going for. That's what we're looking for. Okay. All right. So moving right along. Twist. Let's do a twist and talk about twisting, because this is another thing where sometimes distal adjustments can occur and they can cause injury. And then, so I'm going to do two of them. Let's do, so legs forward. Sit on your bottom and legs forward. Okay, now bring your right foot to the outside of your left leg with your knee pointed up. Yep, so bring your, yes, just like that. Foot on the ground. Now again, you know what the work is for you, right? So press into all four corners of the feet here. Now sit up nice and tall. Sit up. You know how to do it. You know how to do it. Okay, so I'm going to do it from this angle. Actually, you need to do it from the other way. Do it from, no. Extend the right leg, left foot over. There you go. Now get in there. Okay. So I have to come over here. Now I can do this two ways. I can either bring my, it's almost like I'm in a half mermaid pose. So my left knee is bent, almost, or like a wide-legged Jani Shirshasana, right? And so I'm sitting next to her. Now sit up tall. Sit up really tall, really tall. Now bring your knee sort of close to your body. There you go. Now bring your left hand to the outside of your left hip. Yeah, so maybe right here, but right here. Yeah, there. And then bring your right arm high, and then twist your right arm to the outside of this. Yeah, just like that, just like that. Perfect. Perfect. Now, if I was going to adjust her, she was a grown adult. Now remember, grown adults are different than children. So press your arm into your leg so that you can twist your body that way. No, the other way. Twisting that way. Yes, that's perfect. Now, so I can put my hand in the middle of her back to get her thoracic spine to sit up a little bit more, okay? Now, again, I'm going to use 4 fingers on her shoulder blade. And I'm going to say, draw your shoulder blade down and back. Yeah, more down and back. Okay? Now, straighten your arm. Yes, feel that? Yeah, okay. Tickles are optional. But that's really what we're doing. We're using our hands to guide them. I'm not grabbing her, right? I'm guiding her, okay? Now another leg, we're gonna stand up, wide legs.
Disclaimer, tickles are for family.
Yeah, tickles are for family apparently. Wide-legged, like this, standing. Facing those guys, okay? Now interlace your fingers behind your back like this. And now fold forward. You can bend your knees a little bit. Okay, so we actually had a couple conversations about this. Somebody was talking about a student that is similar to Alexis, so not very mobile, right? Has a very tight in the hips. It's okay. And then Carrie last week was talking about somebody who is very mobile. She's very mobile. So you never want to grab the hands and pull them towards the ground, okay? But do that one more time. But I can take my arm right here, and I can use my arm to see if she can lift anymore. Now, I wouldn't really worry about that first. First, what I'm going to worry about is this round back that she's got. Okay, turn to the side. Turn to, oh, no. Now, wide-legged to the side. Okay. Now, so this I can work with. I need to give her a block. So first, you're going to take a block. Put your hands on the block. Okay. Now, look forward. Yes. Broaden your collarbones. Yes. Ta-da! See how we got so much more straight here? Okay. Now her work is just this. Bend at the knees. Over time, her legs will straighten and she'll be able to keep this flatness in her back. Okay. But right now she can't, and that's okay. And then one day when she has this straight and her legs are straight, then she'll start to fold from the hip. Come out of it. All right, questions? And so a lot of our people that come into class that are very tight in the pelvis and they can't forward fold, like I can forward fold. So Alexis, come do it to me. So what you're gonna do is when I do my arms over my head, you can take your arm like this and you can just like gentle pressure. There's no forcing, gentle pressure, okay? So let me go down. No, but on the other side. Other side. Now, just gentle pressure on the arms. Just like that. Just like that's perfect. Really nice, Alexis. So just enough weight so that I can feel into it, but not something that's going to be so dramatic that it's going to cause me to like really go into that hypermobility. All right, questions, comments? Oh, I do? Is there a mosquito in the house? I think there's a mosquito in the house. Okay.
Michelle, I have a quick question.
Yes.
On that pose you're just doing. In regards to toes forward, her toes were pretty far pointing out. Would you have suggested toes straight forward?
So
To fold forward?
Maybe if she had more flexion in the pelvis. So Alexis, stand up for us.
Because of course you had the flexibility, so your toes were straight forward.
So toes straight forward, not out. And now fold forward. So see her lack of flexibility?
Mm-hmm.
So now stand up, turn your toes out. Okay, now fold forward. A little bit more flexibility, right? So it's just, you can come out of it now. So I like to experiment, so I'll play with it a little bit. I thought that this was a good example because yesterday we had somebody who talked about a client or student that comes that looks just like this and can't get over and like can't do it. So I think, or I guess that was last week. So I think that this is a good, using a block, going for straight, almost like a wide-legged L, right? Rather than a wide-legged forward fold. The L comes first, and then when you get that, you can hinge from the hips. So we're never folding from the lumbar back. We're always folding from the hips. Thanks.
Perfect, thanks.
Other questions, comments, thoughts? Okay, so now, I want to show you guys some hand placement. So we've been talking about body placement, my body in relation to them when I'm adjusting and assisting. Now let's talk about hands. So let's come in for a low lunge. So right foot forward, left leg back, and lower the knee. Okay. So bring your hands to the ground around your front foot. Now lower your left knee to the ground. Okay. All right. So now come up into just bring your torso up. Bring your torso up. Heart up, arms up. No, just your, Alexis, just your body. There, okay, perfect. Now bring your arms up above your head. So here, again, I'm gonna be kneeling or one foot down, and I'm gonna use my pelvis, or my hips, my legs to stabilize her. Now, I can grab, touch, hold her hips like this. Fingers together on the sides, never wrapping around, just on the sides. So on the sides, I can adjust her pelvis like this. I can also use my fingers, 3 fingers, raise your arms up. So I can use my fingers to, and I do it underneath. So I pull the sensation, it's the sensation of making space between the hips and the ribs. So raise your arms. Imagine I'm trying to get you to bring length into the side waist, okay? Another way that I can do, can you take the other side, opposite side? Another thing I can do is I can use my body to help her, so raise your arms. So bring your hands around my neck, okay? And then I can lift her up. Okay, so does this feel good? Yeah, it feels good. So, but notice she's in control. Her hands are wrapped around my neck if she wants to do that. I can also do that here. Come back into it. So raise your arms. I could also do that here. So my hands are on her side where her ribs are, arms up. And I could say, I could draw her ribs up, right? Now bring your hands around your front foot. No, just around your front foot like this. See, just like this. Little lunge. Okay, so this is also very common. So there's a lot of flexion in the back. What do I want? I want extension. So can you look forward, Alexis? Alexis, look forward. And so maybe Alexis needs some blocks. Maybe, again, like we talked about growth plates, maybe her legs and arms aren't on the same schedule, right? So now we've created some extension in her spine. So pull your hip back and then press into your blocks. Like, okay, can you drop your chin, just like that. Okay, so this is also another tendency that people like to crank their chin out like this, but what we want is the natural cervical spine curve. Okay, so what happens when Alexis cranks her chin out, like lift your head up? I've cut off the circulation through the fascia to the top of the head. But when she has her chin slightly down, the natural cervical spine curve is there. That's what we want. When we talk about extension through the spine, that's what we want. Now, also, we want her to broaden her collarbone. So Alexis, nope, Alexis, don't just straighten your arms, bring your shoulders down your back. Yes, now drop your chin, keep all that, drop your chin. So that's what we're looking for, is something like this, right? Thank you, Alexis. Okay. I've seen that assist where you're working with the back body, the thoracic spine, and you're working with the shoulders. I've seen it also done with the hands around like the upper part of the thoracic spine. So Alexis, come up. Come into a lunge like this. Front foot forward, and you can have your heel up this time. Heel up. Now, I will say for flat-footed individuals, crescent lunge is much more comfortable than warrior one. Okay, so come up. Just bear with me for a second. You got this, you got this. Okay, so if I'm working with her and I know she's wobbling, see where I'm standing? My feet are on either side of her calf, right? So that I've got her. And if I was going to do a twist or something, I might even really stabilize her like that. So bend your knee, stack it over your ankle, okay? Now reach your arms up. And so I might take my hands around her. You too tired? Just give me one more. I know. So take your arms up. Hands around upper ribs, and I'm gonna lift her upper ribs off of her pelvis, right? But again, keeping the hands right on the side body, fingers together. Thank you, Alexis. Now, did Christine show you guys Shavasana assist yesterday? She did. Okay, cool. All right. Alexis, I think you can take a break. All right. Any questions or anything in particular you want to see? Yeah.
Did you show, someone asked earlier about showing some assist in down dog? You showed us some with Alexis.
Pardon me?
You showed us some with Alexis, correct?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I did. And what I talked about specifically is, you know, there are some that have force, right? That like actually you're pushing on the pelvis. And, you know, I mean, like, again, if you know them, if you have a relationship, you know that they're healthy in their spine, you know, but I wouldn't offer those assists to people that you don't know and have a relationship with and know that they're healthy in their spine. But the assist I would offer in downward dog is, you know, I would offer, like, you know, if you see that the eyes of their elbows are really facing one another, you can gently bring the, you know, wrap the eyes of the elbows forward. Now, somebody emailed me last week and they were like, you know, they were confusing the eyes of the elbows forward with the eyes of the elbows parallel to the top of the mat, okay? So if the eyes of the elbows are parallel to the top of the mat, I'm in hyperextension, and that's not what we want. We want here. So see, my elbows are pointing, it's almost like, so here, my elbow's pointing like this, right? If they're here, they're pointing like this. I don't want this, I want this. Does that make sense? So they're moving forward, but they're not completely forward. Yes, another question about upward facing dog.
Hello, Michelle.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
sorry. I thought you were reading. Oh, sorry, go ahead. I'll ask afterwards.
Okay.
Okay. Hi, thank you. Do you use your knee or your feet to assist students? Knee or feet?
I rarely use my knees unless it's something like I showed earlier where I'm trying to stabilize the leg for like a back bend or something like that. Very rarely. I used them twice today, right? I used my knees to stabilize for that king pigeon variation prep, and I used my knees to stabilize in malasana.
Oh, okay. Just a certain pose.
Yes, and then the foot, the only thing that I will use my foot for is to show them how I want them to turn their foot.
Turn their foot. Okay.
Otherwise, I'm going to use my hands. Like, I'll even put my hands on your foot rather than putting my foot on your foot. I'll put my foot next to your foot and show you what I want your foot to look like, but I'm not going to put my foot on you.
Yeah, so it means the foot shall not touch the people's body, right?
Right.
Yeah, in my previous class, when I attended a class, so I saw a teacher use feet put on your back or put on your on your feet. So I feel very, very uncomfortable for that. So, but look at your video, your classes, I found it's a great way to use hands very gentle to lead people to change, not touch people or push people to change. Yeah, I think that is a good way. Okay, thank you.
That's what we're doing. We're leading change, not forcing change. Leading, not forcing. That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, leading change for. I had experiences. A teacher just come back to me, grab my shoulder, just pull, like suddenly pull back. Oh, I was surprised, and felt very.
Well, yeah. I mean, like, let's say you don't actually get physically hurt. That's sort of like very presumptuous for a teacher to walk up to somebody and start like pulling them or forcing them, or you know what I'm saying? Like, it just feels very, to me, where I am in my practice as a teacher now, it feels like the teacher has mistaken their job, right? I'll give you an example. I was in a class, I was actually observing my teacher, okay? And I was in a class with her, and she used to get really passionate about, that was one of the things I really loved about her. She would get very passionate about, you know, people getting into their bodies and stuff. And so there was somebody on the ground, and that we were doing something with a strap, like some sort of external rotation, you know, sort of thing with the strap. And this one woman was like, I don't feel anything. And so she went over to this woman and started working with her. And she was, you know, had her foot, like the woman's foot was on, you know, Shanti's shoulder, and she had her hands on her thigh, and she's working with her. She totally forgot that the rest of the class was going on. Like, I'm not kidding you. People started getting up and walking out. Like, it was like that. And they were her very like dedicated students, people who were always in her classes. And I was sitting there watching it, and I was thinking, I love my teacher and I didn't judge her for it, but I was thinking how those students must have felt, how alienated they must have felt by, you know, the class literally being derailed by one student, you know, getting adjusted. So, you know, and that was very distal adjustment. So we aren't only working with the physical trauma that we can assert with our hands, guys. We're also working with psychological and emotional trauma that we can, I don't know what's the right word, that can occur both to the student we're touching and to the people around us, right? So like
Yeah.
I've been in an Ashtanga class where somebody like took the person and like really like put them into something. And in my mind, I was like, what is happening? Like it like shocked me, right?
Yeah,
and made
yeah,
me
yeah.
feel weird and uncomfortable. So I think this is a good conversation to have.
Yeah, sometimes I think it's embarrassing this person too. Like he
Yeah.
comes to class, he maybe she thinks she's in like did her effort to try to do best. But if you come just here a little bit up, this little down, like say it in front of a student, other students, I think it's kind of sometimes embarrassing this person. If you take too long time to touch on this person, then other people will feel, oh, what we are doing here, right? So I like a more use verb, like use verb or use like just leading, like some hands. Like I think that way is better.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. You're welcome. All right. Lisa?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yes. Yeah, so my question I think was answered in the chat, but I just wanted to make sure that I guess like in the correct upward dog is the thighs and are lifted from the ground, the thighs and the knees.
Yeah.
Like ideally, right? So for me it's a little, sometimes I can lift them and sometimes it's just harder, depends how warmed up I am or like how my joints feel.
Okay.
So it's not, I can't lift, like not all my upward dogs where my knees are lifted personally. I think like if I have a lot of sunset, if I'm like working, like feel like my joints are like not as stiff, I'm able to do it off the bat, but not all the time. I don't know, is that like?
I think, I honestly think that that's fine. I recommend that people don't do it all the time anyway. So I don't know if any of you guys watched our 108 sun salutations, which by the way, we actually did do 108, but there was some weird funky variations in there that like we actually did them like 4 times and she only counted it for 1 and I was like, what's happening? But anyway, when I was doing that, I only did like Surya Namaskara A with a float back chaturanga and upward facing dog. I only did it like 7 times. And then the entire rest of the time, I was either going from, forward fold to plank to down dog, or I was going from forward fold to child's pose to down dog. It was some variation of that. I just skipped the chaturanga and the upward facing completely. And I recommend that if students aren't feeling it and they don't have the strength that day, just stick with Cobra. That's my recommendation.
Okay, and with a Cobra, that was my next question. So mini Cobra and Cobra, is there no such thing as mini Cobra? People just use it, like, yeah. But what about that technique where sometimes you spread out your fingers and you lift yourself off from your fingers? I have seen it in some yoga, not in yours.
Oh, like these, like little.
Yes.
Yeah. So all those are just variations, and that just brings more awareness to the back body and engagement with the different, like the traps, the lats, like all of your back body turns on in a different way when you come up onto your fingertips like that. It's totally fine. I don't see anything wrong with it. The one thing I want people to do in Cobra, and a lot of times their legs are completely asleep. So what I really want people to do is press into the tops of their feet so much that their quads light up. If their quads light up and their kneecaps are lifted, then they're good, right? But if their quads aren't on and their kneecaps are flat against the floor, nothing's happening in the back legs. And so there's like half a pose.
Makes sense. I did look at the Light on Yoga, and I did look at the Cobra, and his knee, he's really back, like he's like, his spine is my video's off, but it's like a C. Yeah, I don't think that's something that I would be doing.
And that's what I was saying. I don't teach that version. I don't recommend that version. Again, I sort of defer to Iyengar teachers on this. I have trained some Iyengar teachers because Iyengar does not believe in, or the Iyengar method does not believe in Yoga Alliance. So Iyengar teachers are traditionally not Yoga Alliance teachers. And so, but they go through more training than any Yoga Alliance teacher would ever go through, right? So I have had older Iyengar teachers come through my training and learn a lot, and I learned a lot from them. But I always go back to, I'm not an Iyengar teacher, so those more extreme postures that Iyengar does, I don't feel comfortable teaching them or even really speaking to them, because in my mind and my body and with my background as a Vini yoga therapist, it doesn't make sense to me.
Right. Yeah,
You know?
it's very extreme.
Yes, it's very extreme. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, okay, so some people did say about the adjustments, and like I said, I've told you guys that story of me being in that Ashtanga class, and it was like the most uncomfortable, and I was like, this was only a couple years ago, guys. This wasn't like a long time ago. I was an advanced teacher already. I was through yoga therapy, and she was just like, oh, your chaturanga needs to be fixed. She was like, oh, we've got to fix this to warrior two, and I was just like, are you out of, like, what's happening right now? And it was so offensive. So I think the first thing is we always look at our students through the lens of compassion. You know, they're doing exactly the best that they can, and it's not really our job to tell them they're wrong or right or anything. I even always say, like, I'll adjust somebody and then I'll say, how does that feel, right? If it doesn't feel good, move back to the way you were. I don't know. I'm not in your body. I'm not going to be so pompous to think that I know how your body is going to react to this adjustment. So I'm going to offer you something, and if it doesn't work for you in your experience, I want you to be empowered to say, it actually felt better the other way. Okay, that's totally fine, you know? Okay, any other questions or comments? Any other, yes.
This is kind of a comment about assists and like verbalizing, but also a question about child's pose. Because in my experience, I have had a lot of people come along and say, I'm just going to help you into this or whatever. And they kind of do this on the hips and it feels really good. But then one time somebody came along in like a public class, they didn't explain what they were doing. They just kind of like went like that on my back. And like, it made me like go like that with my shoulders. And I had always thought that we were supposed to be rounding almost like a cat. And so then for like 10 years now, I've just been like, I don't know if I'm supposed to be trying to pull my heart forward or not in child's pose. And I never asked anybody because I'm like, it doesn't really matter. But like that person touching my back stays in my mind for a decade now. Every single time I do it, I'm like, I don't know if I'm doing this right. So maybe you could tell me how to do it right also.
Yeah. So it sounds like that's a feel-good assist that sometimes people do to try to get more length in the spine. It's not that they're trying to push you forward and create extension. It's just more like they're trying to make space in between the vertebrae. That's the intention, right? But it didn't feel that way to you. It felt like they were pushing you forward. They clearly put more force into it than they thought they did, right? So I would say you're right on. Child's pose should be comfortable, resting, effortless, okay? So if you feel like you're having to effort to get closer to the floor, then you don't need to do that. Puppy pose is an extension, okay? So puppy pose is spinal extension, and that's when we're moving our heart closer to the floor. And in order to do that, we actually have to lift the pelvis up and create an angle with the pelvis and the torso so that we can get that extension. But child's pose, you can round all day long. You can even round and then wrap your arms around so that the shoulders are really releasing and letting go. Yeah. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. But isn't it interesting, guys, how one teacher, do you even remember their name?
No, I don't remember where it was or anything about it at all.
You just remember the feeling that you had, and now it's something you come back to over and over again, right? So it's why the things that we say and the way that we say things can be so important. Languaging is a really important part of adjustments, and vocalizing and, you know, talking to people and telling them what you're doing will help them to be more receptive.
Michelle, would you also ask permission with an assist as well if you're just going to verbally, like, can I offer you something that might make it, or do you just go up and say, you know, rotate your, you know, back foot 45 degrees?
So I will say, so now that I've had, you know, some time to steep in my teacup, I say to them, would you like an assist? And then they say, sure. No, usually they say sure. Sometimes they say no, but usually they say sure. And then I say, can you match your foot to mine? And then they do it. And then I do anything else I need. Usually I need to guide their knee back over their ankle. Usually that's what I need to do. And then usually I need to guide their shoulders over their pelvis. Warrior 2 is what I'm thinking about right now. And then I'll say, does that feel better? And they'll be like, it feels different. You know, I've never felt Warrior 2 like that. Or they'll be like, no, actually that hurts my knee. So that's one of the two things. Like there's usually like two types of people, right? And if it hurts their knee, I say, okay, no worries, go back to the way you were, right? Find it in your body. If they're like, yeah, that feels great, I'm like, okay, perfect. And then I'll adjust them on the second side. So that's another thing. Don't adjust one side and not the other. Like there's a couple of things that are like hallmarks of a new teacher. And so I'll give them to you right now if you want. So one of the hallmarks of a new teacher is that when they do cross-legged seated postures like Sukhasana, for example, they won't change the cross of the legs. So you guys know what I'm talking about? That's like a hallmark new teacher thing. Don't worry about it. Don't judge yourself for it, but be aware of it. Because as you get more advanced in your teaching, you're going to start catching stuff like that with yourself. And you're going to be, oh yeah, we need to even out both legs. Because if you notice, I bet you anything, if you sat right now in like Sukhasana, sit in Sukhasana for a second for me. Just notice, is your right heel in towards your growing or your left heel in towards your growing? Now change the cross. It's going to feel super weird if you don't do that regularly, okay? And just so you know, in Tantra, the right heel comes in for a man, the left heel comes in for a woman. So I have to, like, I always start off seating with my left heel in towards my groin, and my right heel is on the outside, right? And then I'll switch them. So I'm going to switch them, right? So that I don't get, you know, lopsided, but I always start out with my gender. Make sense? Okay. Michelle, with students that are experiencing feeling downward dogs in their shoulders and arms and not in the thighs and legs, is there an adjustment that is, or is it just strength building needed in the shoulder and upper area of the body? So you will feel downward dog in your shoulders. And that was another thing with 108 sun salutations. Like at a point I was just like, and I'm done with downward dog too. You know, downward dog is just a lot in the shoulders anyway. So what would I say? Is there an adjustment for it? Yes, there is, but I don't teach it anymore. I can show it to you, but I wouldn't teach it. I wouldn't recommend you teaching it. But there is an adjustment to bring attention to the legs. Do you want me to show it to you, Monique? Yeah? Yes? Okay. So again, I'm prefacing, this is a crossed-armed adjustment, and because of Me Too and everything that's going on in our world today, I would not recommend you doing this adjustment. Again, unless it's like somebody you're working with privately, they've signed a consent form, you know them personally, you have a relationship with them, all of these things, right? Very, very many things. So Alexis, come here. Please, my darling, and take downward dog. So walk your feet in a little bit, hips high. Imagine that you are like a pyramid, right? So you're making a triangle with your body. So move your feet out a little bit, just widen your stance, just like, yeah, that's perfect. So this is the adjust, okay? Alexis, I'm gonna put my hands in between your legs, okay? Is that okay? Cross at the arms, and then I take, and I'm right by her knees. I'm above her knees because I don't want to go too close, too like far up. I'm right above her knees, and I just pull, okay, imagine your heels are on the ground. No, yeah, so I'm just pulling back. So that brings, in me, if I was in downward dog, so can you do it to me? Here, come look. So your hands are gonna go right here, right above my knees, and then do I have your consent? You have my consent. Good, see, we're teaching them well, right? Okay, so here we go, now you're downward dog. Okay, and you can pull, Alexis, it's okay. No, like you can pull more than that, like really pull. Get in there, press on the inside, yeah, just like that, just like that. So that brings a lot of attention and awareness to the back of my downward dog. And it really does create like a balance between the effort in the shoulders and the effort in the legs, okay? But again, like I said, I don't teach that in a public studio. Yes, so Jill says, this is my favorite adjustment to have done, but only by my husband. Yes, I mean, really, it's amazing. Like, try it with your partner, try it with, you know, your partner, but stop laughing. But yeah, it's a very intimate adjustment. Like, to be honest, I wouldn't mind if my teacher adjusted me that way. In fact, she had to adjust me. She demoed and stuff like that on me, and that was fine. I had a relationship with her, you know, and I had been studying with her for years, and I trusted her. That's a big, huge part of it. That capital T, I trusted her with my body. Yeah. Do you have any tips for how to make adjustments comfortably for students when a teacher carries more mass in the front of their body? Like, so what I'm thinking about is like, somebody asked this question earlier. Oh yeah, I'll get there. Hold on one second. So somebody also asked, like, when you are fuller figured or when you have a fuller chest, how do you adjust without feeling like you're in their space? I typically adjust from the side. So I used to adjust standing over people, right? And I don't do that anymore because I just feel like it's too foreboding. Is that the right word? Or it's too, like, you know what, is that a good word for it? It's like too much, you know? And so I come to the side of you and I'll adjust you, like one side, the other side, and that way, and usually it's like to the side and back. But I always tell them, you don't come up behind somebody and touch them without telling them. You will scare the poop out of them. And I've had people jump, you know, if you don't tell them that you're gonna touch them, they might even jump, so yeah. Okay, other hallmarks of a new teacher. So like I said, so hallmarks of a new teacher is not crossing the legs or changing the cross of the legs. Another hallmark of a new teacher is, trying to think, I had two that were right on the top of my head. I'll think about it and I'll come back to it. I'm sure it will pop up here in a second. Cues for adjustment in Shavasana. I like Adrian, it's awkward. Yes, that's an awkward adjust for sure. Cues for adjustments in Shavasana. I like to cue personal adjustments. So I'll say maybe you wrap one shoulder onto the back body and then the other. Maybe you lift the pelvis and make space in the lumbar spine. Maybe you know, rock the heels side to side and let the legs relax. So I cue them to make personal adjustments. Once I've gotten people into Shavasana, I don't like to adjust them because I don't know where they are in Shavasana. So like when I go into Shavasana, I usually start in my thinking mind. All right, how is that class? How do I feel? Blah, 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 blah. And then I try to drop out of my thinking mind. So it's literally like, if I was to visualize it, my mind, my visual is up here. And then I'm like, I realize, nope, Michelle, you're still in the thinking mind. And I drop out and I literally, it's like a falling back and down. And then I'm not so consumed with that vritti anymore. And I'm more in my sensational body. Now I'm in my sensational body and I just let what comes, and that's how I get into my meditation. So that's my method. I don't know what everybody's method is. If I walk up to somebody and it's been 2 minutes in Shavasana and I want to give them adjustment, I may take them out of Shavasana. So I don't want to do that. So I'm going to leave them alone. Was one of them not adjusting two sides? Oh, yes, that was it. Thank you, Tara. Yes, a lot of times new teachers will not adjust both sides. So if you adjust somebody in a warrior 2 on the right side, you need to adjust them on the left side too. And that's why I also I look for people if I'm going to be adjusting when I do that right side, right? We're always scanning the crowd. I used to be a lifeguard and they used to make us like scan. It was like back and forth and then down and up and down and up. Other lifeguards out there probably have had this too, right? Well, it's the same way when we're scanning an asana room. I'm looking at everybody's knees. Okay. I'm looking at everybody's back foot. Okay. I'm looking at everybody's pelvis and in relation to their shoulders. Okay. And then I know where I need to adjust. So maybe I'll go make an adjustment. If they're receptive to it, I'm going to hit them on the second side too. Would you be?
All right, I made a typo.
Oh yeah.
It just, would you be able to create a list of the adjustment poses, or maybe just say them verbally and we can write them down? Because
yes.
That way, because it's a live class, I couldn't catch all of them.
Will you grab me that book for a second, Alexis? Yes, and actually what I can do is, okay, so I'll go through them.
Oh, that's perfect, thank you.
Tadasana was the first one.
Okay.
And then downward dog is the next one.
Mm-hmm.
And then we did a hip stance with like warrior 3. And remember, I was inside of the lifted leg.
Yep.
We did a kneeling stance for like a warrior 2. That kneeling stance also works for extended side angle, triangle, all those things. We did a knee assist for Malasana, yogi squat. I showed you how to place your hands on the pelvis for all the standing asanas, like where the hands go. I showed you how to do a wide leg stance for a twist, a seated twist. Now in Mark's book, so this is what I'm looking at, Mark's book right now, he tells you to actually lift or put your leg on top of their leg. And again, because of things that are happening now, I just don't recommend you do that, right? Then we did a wide-legged forward fold with a bind, and we did a wide-legged forward fold without a bind. We looked at adjusting for flat-footedness or adjusting for supination versus pronation. We also looked at what that looks like. I'm so grateful. Are you coloring on my stuff?
No, it's Expo marker.
Don't do that.
It's Expo marker.
No.
You can shut it off.
Alexis?
I'm too doing.
Apparently we're still 2. Okay, moving right along. Okay, so cross wrist, I showed you that cross wrist one for down dog, right? But then I also showed you the one where you can tell that their shoulders aren't integrated, and like maybe their spine isn't getting extension, so you have them roll forward into plank in down dog, and then you wrap the triceps away, the biceps away from the midline, and have them push their hips up and back. Notice I have them push their hips up and back. I don't put my hand on their hips, right? And that's what we've done so far today. And then obviously earlier, and then what Christine did. So Christine showed you a lot of the standing asanas, right? Triangle, extended side angle, all of those things. Okay, good. All right, additional questions, thoughts, other poses you're interested in? All right, so what is your, as a student, I want to have a little conversation around your preference around adjustments and like how you feel about them as a student, and then how you feel about them as a teacher, just given everything that's going on in our world today.
I'm glad you asked that, actually, because there have been a few things that have been rolling around in my head in terms of my experience of adjustments. Kind of on the other side of the coin, that, and I mean, I have the privilege of speaking as somebody who's not likely to be, like, memories of physical trauma are not going to be activated for me by touching. So I realize that that's a privileged place to be. But I've also had experiences where I found myself opening up to touch in ways that I hadn't expected, in things like workshops where someone would bring in some Thai massage that I hadn't known was going to be on the roster. And maybe if somebody had said to me in advance, you're going to get really snuggly with this sweaty guy next to you, I would have been like, But now, and like in the moment, actually, it was wonderful and it felt so freeing. I'm not sure I would have responded the same way if somebody had kind of coached me through it and I'd had the chance for that anxiety to build. So sometimes there are moments of contact that can happen almost by accident that are incredibly freeing and beautiful. And I think particularly, like, in place, I'm in the UK and the lockdown here has been pretty severe for the last 3 months. There have been people who have been living without any contact whatsoever for 3 months in complete isolation, and people are getting increasingly weird about the idea of touching one another. I feel like this touch can be incredibly powerful and moving. So is there a way of bringing both worlds together so that we can have that encouraging of people maybe outside of their comfort zones in a safe way?
Sure. So what comes up for me is, and I've actually been thinking about this too, I do know that people, and myself included, I am not going to want to touch people or be touched for a long time, just because of like the vulnerability of my family life. You know, I don't, you know, I've mentioned I don't have any family, and so neither does Chris, my husband. So we're sort of like the last hurrah here. And I've got, like, how old is this one? She's 12. So I'm like, okay, I've got at least 6 years. I've got to stick around, like, to make sure that she's taken care of. I know it sounds crazy, guys, but I lost my mom at, 17. And with COVID, I know that I'm healthy, but with COVID, people are dying that shouldn't be dying, And so I am going to be very wary of it until there is an acceptable treatment. Once there's an acceptable treatment where people aren't dying, my view on the whole virus is going to change. But right now, it's a lot of trial and error. And when you're dealing with human life, that scares me. It really does. I'm not as scared of the virus as I am of the way that we're reacting to it. That's what I'm going to say. So that's the only reason I'm sort of freaked out about touch. When we get back to normal, to a place of normalcy, I think that we are still going to have to be sensitive to the people who have been traumatized by this global pandemic. And there will be people who were traumatized prior to the global pandemic, and then this just added to it, right? Every single day, people are going through traumas, every single day. And then you add all of this to it, and I can't even imagine. So that's actually called compound trauma or compound grief. It can be, if it's grief, it's compound, it's multiple things come on. If it's compound trauma, it's multiple traumas on top of one another. And I think that there's a couple ways we can do it. I like the way Ashtanga teachers sometimes do it, where they have a towel, they carry a towel, and they put the towel on the student first, and then their hands touch the towel. Okay, I like that because it puts a barrier between me and the student. And that's what they're even saying with these masks, is it's not that the masks really do all that much. It's the perception that they do a lot, and the protection that it provides from you touching your face. So it changes the behavior of the individual. Does that make sense? So if I put the towel on the person's back and then I put my hands on their back, that changes the perception of the touch, right? Now, of course, then that increases my laundry. I have to do laundry every class because you can't use the same towel over and over. You would really want to launder it every single time. But that's one way that I think you could adapt to it. I agree with you. Touch is very important, and it can be extremely healing. we have to be careful. And we talked about this last time, because in some states and like America, touch is reserved only for massage therapists. Like we were talking about Florida, like it's like illegal for yoga teachers to touch. So I think we have to be careful of it, but I do agree that it's very powerful and moving, and I don't want it to go away altogether. I just think we're going to have to work around it.
Sure. I mean, that makes sense. And I think my question was speaking more to, I mean, in the UK, yoga studios aren't even open yet, and they're not going to be open for a long time. And I think I was thinking more about the long term, 8 months down the road, 12 months down the road, when the psychological aftermath also kicks into effect, where people have been, where touch has become scary and pathologized. And I mean, I'm only speaking to the point where it is healthy to touch people again and non-threatening and that sort of thing. And whether or not you've had any thoughts about what that time could look like for yoga teachers as healers, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, so I think that's thank you for clarifying. I would actually say that we're going to need to do some workshops around it. We're going to need to do some education around it. We're going to need to, bring people in and talk about and this is the student population, not the teachers. We're going to need to have teachers who are willing to do workshops on partner assist, on assisting and adjusting, so that the students can get deeper into the poses. Or experience them more fully. I think that's a great idea. I think that's going to be where it is. It's going to be education, and probably it'll start in a smaller group workshop setting. I've even thought about having a class that is titled Alignment and Adjustments, or Adjustments and Alignments. So people know they're coming in and they're going to get adjustments.
Cool.
Thanks, Tara.
Thank you.